On January 6, protests erupted in Pucheng, Shaanxi province. A young man standing on an elevated platform blew a horn, marking the peak of the public demonstration. Thousands of people gathered and tried to break through police barricades, entering the Pucheng Vocational Education Center. Some school facilities were damaged, and the principal was assaulted. Videos from the scene show the principal becoming dizzy from the beating and eventually taking refuge in an ambulance. Footage of ransacked offices inside the school reflects the chaos that had unfolded there. The chants and clashes between police and citizens express the anger of the Chinese people, frustrated by repression and the lack of transparency from authorities. An overseas activist blogger described this as the largest protest in China since January 2023, estimating the number of demonstrators at around 50,000. But what triggered this protest? Let's start from the beginning. On January 2nd at 3 a.m., a third-year student named Dong from the Pucheng Vocational Education Center fell from a building. Police and paramedics found no signs of life when they arrived. However, the school's handling of the incident raised suspicions. According to social media posts by his mother, Dang Changxing was a boarding student at the high school. She recalled that he was cheerful when returning to school on December 29, 2024. But at 3 a.m. on January 2nd, she received a call from his teacher, urgently asking her to come to the school. When she arrived, she could not find her son. His classmates appeared nervous and avoided answering her questions. Teachers then took her to a room and did not let her leave. She said, "I was controlled by the teachers. Every time I tried to stand up, they told me to sit down and not move." When she anxiously asked about her son's whereabouts, the teachers only told her to wait. At 7 a.m., the deputy chief of the local police station informed her that her son had jumped. The mother was shocked and couldn't believe what she heard. She felt weak and overwhelmed. She requested to see her son, but the school took her to a hotel across the street, where two teachers watched over her. It wasn't until 4 p.m. that she was brought to the funeral home. Upon seeing her son, she noticed no external injuries on his face or head, but there were bruises below his neck. When she tried to lift his clothing to check for other wounds, teachers stopped her and forbade any photos. The family was allowed only a brief viewing before being escorted out. She wrote, "I don't understand. Why can't I see my child? All witnesses, his phone, watch, and other items were confiscated. Photos were deleted, and we found clear signs of a struggle in his dorm room." Her brother shared her posts and mentioned that many of her videos on Douyin were restricted. The family grew increasingly suspicious, believing the truth differed from the police report. They are convinced that Dang's death was not self-harm. 3 days after the incident, on January 5th, the Pucheng County Joint Investigation Team released a statement confirming the student's death from falling. The statement stressed that after examining the scene, reviewing surveillance, interviewing witnesses, and inspecting the body, authorities ruled out any criminal case. The school repeatedly refused to provide surveillance footage to the family, claiming the cameras were broken. This raises questions. How did the investigation claim to have reviewed surveillance footage if the cameras were supposedly not working? The report also described the incident. On January 1st, at around 10 p.m., Dong got into an argument and physical conflict with a first-year student named Guo and his friend Xu because their conversation disturbed him. Dong later reported the issue to the school's vice director of student affairs. After mediation, both students returned to their dorms. Around 3 a.m., Dong's roommate found the dorm balcony window open with a bench placed below it. Dong was found outside, below the window. However, the report did not explain how it fell. Online reports by witnesses suggested a different story. One person claimed that Dong was attacked by first- and third-year students and was pushed out of the window. This person also mentioned that one of the bullies' fathers was a local official with close ties to the school principal, implying a cover-up by the school, education bureau, and police. They insisted the cameras were not broken. Another post alleged that one of the students involved in pushing Dong down bragged that his father's influence would protect him. Others corroborated this, sharing similar accounts online. Many internet users questioned the official report. People also criticized the lack of transparency. No medical checks were done after the initial fight, and the family was left uninformed about the situation. Following the protests, some citizens entered the school and found the surveillance cameras working. One person filmed the equipment, questioning, "Weren't the cameras broken? They look fine to me." This furthered public outrage, as it became evident the school's claim was false. The authorities' attempt to hide the truth sparked further protests. From January 4th, Dong's family and concerned citizens gathered at the school gate, demanding answers. A local student, who calls himself Fang, told reporters that he learned from his friend at the school that Dong had been beaten by 7 students, contradicting the official narrative. Fang joined the protest, believing that if people remained silent, their own children might become the next victims. As more people became aware of the situation, the protests grew. Local residents joined the demonstrations. In response, police arrested Dong's uncle, but this inflamed the crowd. Protesters clashed with the police, trying to rescue him. Videos showed physical confrontations, with police using force against the demonstrators. Many protesters, including women and students, sustained injuries. By the evening of January 5th, the protests escalated further. Large crowds gathered inside and outside the school, confronting police. Eventually, the authorities released Dong's uncle, and the crowd gradually dispersed. On January 6th, the protest continued at the school entrance, swelling to around 50,000 people. Demonstrators held signs demanding an end to bullying and the truth about Dong's death. Some managed to breach police barriers and enter the school, seeking an explanation from school officials. Even underage students confronted the police, and videos emerged showing the crowd overpowering law enforcement. In a rare occurrence, one police officer was beaten by protesters and collapsed. Fang reported that tensions escalated because the police struck some protesters first, leading to a full-blown clash. He saw 8 students injured and detained by police. The situation on the ground remained chaotic. On the evening of January 6th, police blocked highway entrances to Pucheng, preventing more protesters and media from entering. According to local residents, police patrolled the area throughout the day and night as the situation escalated, and online censorship struggled to contain the spread of information. Although search terms related to the incident were removed, videos from the protest still surfaced on social media. In an effort to divert public attention, Chinese authorities allegedly flooded social media with celebrity scandals, including Lu Han's public apology and actor Wang Xingxing's disappearance in Myanmar. Stories involving rising stars like Li Mingde's controversy were also highlighted to overshadow the Pucheng protests. Li, a former student who graduated 2 years ago, visited the school's entrance on the evening of January 6th. She described how police with shields slowly moved forward to disperse the smaller crowd compared to the daytime protests. Li mentioned that many of the students protesting were from other schools, as current students had been sent home. She recalled experiencing bullying during her time at the school, though she wasn't physically harmed. By the morning of January 7th, the protests in Pucheng had ended. Insiders reported that the school called every student's parents, warning them not to join the demonstrations. Some netizens suggested the protests ended because the public felt powerless against the overwhelming pressure. Just a week earlier, the Handan Intermediate Court in Hebei had sentenced 3 high school students involved in the brutal killing of a classmate. One received life imprisonment, another a 12-year sentence, while the third was released without criminal charges. This ruling sparked national outrage, with many feeling the punishment was too lenient. 2 perpetrators would walk free, while the victim's life was cut short. The Pucheng case, also rooted in school bullying, resonated with the public, but with the added complication of political interference and the involvement of CCP officials. Commentator Tang Jingyuan expressed skepticism that the perpetrators in this case would face justice. He noted that such incidents were not rare in China. He cited past cases like the Chengdu No. 49 High School, a bullying-related death in Quanzhou, and a recent incident in Sichuan, where a student died after falling. Tang remarked, these cases show that under CCP rule, schools have ceased to be safe havens for students. Instead, they have become shelters for criminals and accomplices in maintaining the regime's stability. When a school becomes an extension of the state stability apparatus, the privileges of officials' children are institutionalized, fostering a toxic environment where they can bully others with impunity. He warned that this creates a dangerous norm, where schools are no longer safe, resembling something closer to a nightmare. Tang also highlighted the systemic approach to covering up such incidents, silencing witnesses, controlling families, destroying evidence, and coordinating with police to issue false statements. Tang observed this pattern repeats across different regions, whether in Shaanxi, Hebei, or Sichuan. The same playbook is used every time. For many outside China, it's hard to grasp why the government doesn't simply reveal the truth. Tang explained that the CCP fears setting a precedent. If one protest results in justice, it could embolden others across the country, potentially destabilizing society. He said, "The CCP's mindset isn't like that of a normal democratic government. They believe appeasing one group could lead to mass unrest nationwide." Before the Pucheng incident erupted, many Chinese people's memories were still anchored in the White Paper movement of 2022. The trauma for those who participated in that movement remains profound. Huang Yicheng, who joined the protest on Urumqi Road in Shanghai 2 years ago, recounted to the media how he was beaten by police, pinned to the ground, and dragged onto a bus with his face covered in blood. He managed to escape during the chaos, reminiscent of the current Pucheng protests. The White Paper movement sparked the largest protest in China since the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. Huang noted, "The Chinese government fears the White Paper movement even more than the June 4th one because it directly targets Xi Jinping's authoritarian regime." 2 years have passed since the White Paper movement was crushed by Beijing's heavy-handed suppression, failing to bring systematic change to Chinese society. Yet Huang believes that public resentment continues to build. He says, "I can confidently predict that even greater disasters will unfold in the coming years." The Pucheng protests validate Huang's perspective. The concessions made by Pucheng protesters hint that they, like participants of the White Paper movement, may face persecution and long-lasting fear and trauma at the hands of the CCP. The White Paper movement originated on November 24, 2022, after a deadly fire in an apartment in Urumqi, Xinjiang. The fire claimed at least 10 lives. Many believe the true death toll was higher and blamed strict lockdown measures for delaying rescue efforts and worsening the tragedy. Memorial events across the country ignited public fury, evolving into widespread protests. A month later, while the Chinese government eased its pandemic policies, it also launched a crackdown on demonstrators. International human rights groups estimate that around 100 White Paper movement participants were arrested, with some facing charges for picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Some remained detained, while others fled abroad or were released on bail. Testimonies from participants, including Xia Chaochuan, who is now in exile in Europe, revealed harsh treatment during police detention, ranging from solitary confinement and prolonged interrogations to inhumane conditions. Huang Yicheng fled China several months after avoiding arrest and now resides in Germany, continuing to advocate for Chinese dissidents. Huang described the heavy price of initiating civic action in China, admitting his disappointment with the current situation. Huang said, "Although the movement ended zero-COVID policies, it failed to bring deeper social change. Future large-scale mobilizations may become even harder." In this light, the compromise at Pucheng seemed inevitable. Director of the National Development Institute at National Chengchi University in Taipei, Huang Zhaonian, highlighted that public protests in China often stem from issues related to human rights, social justice, youth unemployment, and wage arrears. These trends are well documented in various studies. As China's economic transformation continues to stagnate, Huang warned that if Trump reimposes tariffs on China in 2025, it could further damage exports and foreign investment, exacerbating social instability. Since economic problems threaten the legitimacy of CCP rule, authorities consistently resort to online censorship, propaganda control, and even state violence to suppress dissent. Huang predicts that freedom of speech in China will face even harsher restrictions in the future. He said, "In these economic conditions, public dissatisfaction will persist, but so will the government's repression of human rights and free speech. The outlook is not optimistic."